for those of you who don't know, a PCIP is a publisher's catalog and publication block. This is a block of cataloging that is used by librarians to put your book in their system. So by getting this cataloging block prior to publication, it can go on your copyright page, and it is a value added service to publishers, or I'm sorry, to librarians, because it means that they do not have to go cataloging your book before they shelve it. Now, I have heard stories from many librarians that they will sometimes order a book without a PCIP block or without a cataloging block, but that book goes in their cataloging room, and the cataloging librarian, because it takes special training, often has other duties. Those books can sit in a room for up to 2 years before they're cataloged, and they're actually put into the system so that they can be used that way. So if you really think libraries are a market for you, I highly recommend you get a PCIP block. It will make your book more convenient for the librarians to not only buy, but stock. So a publisher's catalog and publication block, it looks like this. So you may have seen this on a copyright page of a book, and it's got all the information. You'll see that it's got classifications, it's got subjects, or like BISAC, it's got the ISBN, it's got information on the author, and so on and so forth. So not only does it end up here, but when they create this cataloging block, Cassidy will upload your information to the WorldCat system, the OCLC system. These are cataloging systems that librarians can just drop your name or your ISBN into and find your book. So they can get information right at their fingertips. So if they decide they want your book, they buy your book, they go right into the cataloging and they say, yes, I have this book now, and it goes into their shelf and they get it ready and they put it on their shelves. If you don't have that cataloging block, then they are going to have to catalog it themselves, which again, oftentimes those books are put into a cataloging room. This is done by a special cataloging librarian who has other duties, and it can take upwards of 2 years to get cataloged before it actually ends up on the shelf. And a book sitting in a room doesn't really do anyone much good. It's certainly not spreading your name as an author and your brand. It's not getting you new readers. So the PCIP block from Cassidy, there's this form. See, it tells you the following is required: title, author, city, state of publication, publisher name, ISBN, the edition, the audience, a brief summary, which is just your description, your name, company name, address, email address, phone number, blah, blah, blah. So these are the things that you will need. So when looking at this form, let's actually look at it together, and we will walk through and talk about all of the steps. And yes, if you have a traditional publisher, they will do this for you. And many small and mid-level press will do it as well, but it's something to ask about, because if your publisher is not doing this for you, you will want to make sure that you advocate for it. All right, so were you a client of the former Donahue Group Incorporated, which is DGI? Yes or no? So you want to have that in there. All right, then you need your title. And yes, this should be your final title. Then you need your author's name. Was there an editor that put together the book? Now, this is not like, hey, I had a proofreader and an editor. Not that. When we talk about editors in this instance, we're talking about someone who actually pulled the book together, that edited it. So like an anthology or something like that. So the authors, the city and state of publication, that if you are the publisher, your city and state, your publisher name. And again, I know I've spoken of this before. I highly recommend that you create your own publishing imprint name. That is the name under which you publish your books and you do publishing business. You may or may not incorporate as an LLC. That's up to you. Some people will do a DBA. And some people simply claim that publisher name and they just do business under that. And that's kind of how they brand themselves. I do have, if you go to the New Shelves website and you go to our blog and you type in publishing company, I think If you do that, there's a whole blog on how to name your publishing company. So I won't get into that. Your copyright date. Now, this is either your copyright date according to your filed copyright or the year in which you wrote and will publish this book. So 2022 is what I would be doing. Projected publication date, the date you expect to launch, your ISBNs, and notice that they're asking for all of them. You want to make sure that you specify print ISBN, and then you list it out, ebook ISBN, and you list it out for all of your formats. Library control number, if you have one, or PCN, of Library of Congress control number, or PCN, which you may or may not have. Edition, is this the first edition? Are you doing a second edition, a special edition, whatever it may be? When it talks about your audience is typically going to be trade adult. If you are writing fiction or nonfiction, for the average adult, you are writing trade adult books. Now you may say trade adult fiction, trade adult nonfiction, up to you, but it is a trade book. If it is a children's book, then you would write children or juvenile. Now, typically, it's a children's book. If we're really breaking it down, it's a children's book up until about age 11. And then middle grade, I'm sorry, I just messed that all up. Children's book is typically until about age 8. Then we have middle grade, which is sometimes classified between 8 and 12 years old. And then young adult or teen is often from 14 to 18. So if you do have a children's book, there are some different kind of ways you can do that, or you can just classify it more generally under juvenile. That's fine. If you have a textbook, if you have a textbook or an educational book, then it would be an educational audience. However, the vast majority of you writing books for adults, it will be a trade adult book. Series, if your book's in a series, if it's not, you leave it blank. Is there an index in the back? Do you have an index where people can go and kind of use it for reference? Do you have a bibliography or reference or footnotes? Chances are you're only going to have this if it's nonfiction. And then it asks, is this a work of fiction? Yes or no? And as my husband always goes, is that real or not real? Fiction is not real, or at least it's, it's very heavily modified. So, and then please provide a brief summary. This is just like your back cover text. This is the description of your book. BISACs. BISACs are categories. And if you're having a hard time finding BISACs, we go to our old friend Google. So you can say magical realism fiction BISAC. And you know what it's going to pull us to? It's going to pull us to BISG.org. And this lovely, lovely website has a ton, I would say all, but I can't say that with confidence, but a ton of BISAC subject headings lists. So you can search different keywords, different things, and it will pull up a list of BISAC categories. Fiction, general, fiction absurdient, all of these things. And there are hundreds, but your BISAC is this number right here. That is your category. Now, what I personally do, if you're on a PC, hit Control F, and that will bring up this little search bar, and I can say magical, and it will pull up that right there. So I can say, okay, it's magical realism. So this is your category, but not an Amazon category. This is more of a trade library category. And that is what you do to find your BISAC codes. And typically, the average book will have up to 3 BISAC codes. So you can do your research on that. Table of contents, introductory notes, if you like. Very often when I submit for a PCIP, I actually give them the interior and the cover files so they can see everything. Just depends on how much you need and how much you want. And then your personal information here and your website, and you can upload. So you can upload your title page because they do need that, and so on and so forth. And then you have to say you're not a robot, and then you submit. The lovely people over at Cassidy will confirm. They will get working on your PCIP block, and then Once your PCIP block is done, they send it to you. They send it to you as a Word document and as a PDF document. It literally comes in this chunk of text from Cassidy. This one was done before, so it was done by the Donahue group. So it's just this chunk of text that you then will copy and paste exactly as is and put it on your copyright page. It is very important that you cannot change this text. You cannot say, I don't like the keyword they put in. I think I'll change it. That's not how it works. You are not the cataloger. So you put it in exactly as is. You're allowed to change the font and the size, but all of the spacing, the indents, they are there for a reason, and you may not change those. And what that looks like in a PDF is, so this one is Road to Breaking. So this is the first page, the title page, and then here on the copyright page, this is where we actually see it. So you can see here, it's got all the copyright information, and down at the bottom right here is our PCIP block, exactly as it was. It's just put right in there and it's saved. That way librarians can see the book and they can easily catalog and get the book into their specific library cataloging system and get it onto the shelves as soon as possible.